This is Embrace Your Inner Boldness, a podcast about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. I'm Melissa Henning Frank, coach, guide, and founder of Becoming Bold. I help you strip away the conditioning, reclaim your voice, and rise into the power that's always been yours. Let's get right to it. Hey, bold soul, welcome back to the show. Today we're going to go into the shadows, the psyche and the programming, and right into the truth of who you really are beneath all of those masks that you're wearing. This episode is a love letter to the part of you that knows you're made for more, but still finds yourself playing small. Maybe you're the peacekeeper, the achiever, the caretaker, the overthinker, and you wonder, why do I hold back when I know there's more inside of me? We're going to talk about the psychology behind that, really dig into the science and the soul and the path to reclaiming your bold, unfiltered self. So I'll be pulling from Carl Jung's theory of personality, how it shaped the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, and how that connects to our daily struggles, our societal conditioning, and ultimately our liberation. I personally really geek out on stuff like this, and I also understand that there's people that don't quite get as geeked out as I do, but I'm really taking you to school today, and we're going to talk about Carl Jung. So his name is spelled J-U-N-G, but it's pronounced Jung, like it rhymes with moon, in case you're wondering. So Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist and a psychoanalyst, and he's the guy who gave us concepts like the shadow self, archetypes, introversion and extraversion, the process of individuation or becoming your whole self, not just the version that's been approved by others. He believed that we're not just one fixed identity. We're a collection of conscious traits and unconscious patterns, all sort of mingling in the dark and in the light. And he believed that we each have these natural preferences, how we take in information, how we make decisions, how we recharge our energy, and those preferences shape our behavior. And if that sounds familiar, it's because that's the foundation of the MBTI, or the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. So the MBTI takes Jung's ideas and turns them into a really powerful tool for self-awareness. And it's much less about putting you in a box of a four-letter type, and it's more about helping you recognize the box that you were already in so you can step out of it and into who you were born to be. His work was also less about fixing people and more about making the unconscious conscious, which he said is the only way that we can actually grow. And you've heard me say this before on the podcast, but self-awareness is really the key to becoming who you truly are. And the MBTI shows you on paper the things that you might not be fully aware of about yourself, so you can be more intentional, more authentic in all the ways that you show up in the world. Jung also taught that we all develop a persona, and this is the mask that we wear to function in society. And it's how we want to be seen, how we fit in, and how we survive in our environment. But over time, especially if we over-identify with that persona, we forget who we really are underneath it. This is how you become the good girl. This is how you become the peacekeeper, the overachiever, the helper. But that's not necessarily your true self. That's the version of you that got approval. Jung also believed that every person has a shadow, and this is the unconscious parts of ourselves that we've either rejected, denied, or just pushed down and really suppressed. Those parts don't go away. They hide, they fester, and they act out in self-sabotage, projection, or people-pleasing. And why do we change? Typically, we change because we have an unconscious need to stay safe or loved. So we bury the parts of ourselves that felt like they were too much or not enough. We bury our boldness, our anger, our desires, and our voice. And instead, we adapt so that we can stay accepted. And then we lose pieces of who we really are. The goal of Jungian psychology is individuation. So that's becoming your whole integrated self. That means reclaiming what was lost. It means reconciling the mask and your shadow and aligning your outer life with your inner truth. And this is the exact work I'm doing when I help you stop performing and start becoming. Jung saw the psyche as self-regulating. It constantly tries to restore balance. If we live too far from our true self, we experience anxiety, depression, identity confusion, physical illness, or burnout. So your psyche is always nudging, or in some cases really shaking you back into alignment. So if you feel like something's missing, don't take that as a sign that you're broken, but take it as a sign that your soul is trying to lead you home. One way that we can reconnect with our lost parts is by noticing what triggers us in others, whether that's good or bad. Jung called this projection. We often envy or criticize the traits that we've disowned in ourselves. So if you're jealous of someone's boldness, that could be your own boldness buried. Or if you're annoyed by someone's confidence, it could mean that your confidence is really wanting to come out from the dark. And this becomes a powerful clue. What you admire or resent in others might be what you've denied in yourself. Let's talk a little bit more about why we change from our true self in the first place. We can adopt the behaviors, beliefs, and roles that helped us feel safe in our childhood homes, in our schools, in our workplaces, in our cultures, and in our systems. So we adapt to survive. We could also be trying to avoid pain. We might abandon parts of ourselves that were punished, ignored, or misunderstood. There's also a desire for belonging. We conform to the expectations of our family, our religion, our culture, or our peers. And then there's also the internalization of experiences that told us we were wrong or too much or not enough. And that could come from things like trauma or shame. So we shrink and we shape-shift and we perform in ways that are opposite of our true self. But underneath all of that, our true self remains intact and it's really waiting to be reclaimed. The MBTI, or the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, came from two women, Catherine Cook Briggs and her daughter Isabel Briggs Myers, who took Jung's theory of psychological types and shaped it into something that could help people better understand themselves and each other. And listen, I know that personality assessments can feel to some people a little fluffy or gimmicky sometimes, and then there's also a bunch of people who really love them. The MBTI for me helped me name parts of myself that I had been performing around for years. And even better, it helped me stop making other people wrong just because they thought or communicated differently than I did. When you work with your type versus trying to silence or avoid it, life becomes so much easier. So quick details if you're new to the MBTI or need a refresher. There's a framework that includes 4 main dichotomies, and that means that it's basically 4 spectrums that we all land on. There's extraversion and introversion, and this is asking yourself, do you recharge through interacting with people or internally through solitude? So it's not necessarily about being shy or outgoing, but it does mean that it's how you recharge, how your energy is impacted. And then there's sensing and intuition. So do you prefer facts and present reality, or do you prefer big ideas and future possibilities? And then there's thinking versus feeling. Do you lead with logic or do you lead with values and empathy? And then there's judging and perceiving. And judging isn't the way that we typically talk about, like when you judge a person, but it's more how you rule like a judge would rule. It's usually this or that. So judging versus perceiving. Do you prefer structure and closure, or do you prefer flexibility and spontaneity? So you end up with a 4-letter type like ENTP or ISFJ. But here's the thing. No type is better than any other. It's about self-awareness. It's about understanding your wiring and being able to see and honor the differences in others. I want to take a minute to talk about the middle 2 letters and how they can clash and why it matters. So let's zoom in on the S, N, and T, F, because these are where the most common misunderstandings and tensions show up. Let's talk about sensing versus intuition. Sensing types are usually grounded in the here and now. They focus on what's concrete, what's proven. Intuitive types, hi, that's me, live in patterns and possibilities. We connect dots, we dream big, and we read between the lines. So there can be some big clashes between these two things. Sensors might think that intuitives are way too abstract or unrealistic or scattered, and intuitives might see sensors as unimaginative or too focused on boring details. I've definitely been the intuitive who wants to, for example, build a rocket ship mid-meeting while someone else just really wants to finish the budget spreadsheet. So both are needed, but the friction can feel really personal if we don't name it and understand it. And then there's thinking versus feeling. Thinkers prioritize objectivity and logic. Feelers tune into emotional dynamics and people's values. So in conflict, thinkers might dismiss feelers as too sensitive, and feelers might think that thinkers are cold or harsh. I've coached teams where the divide between the T and the F was the root of all the unspoken tension, and I've lived this tension in my own relationships. And once I understood that it was wiring and not a flaw, I started approaching people with more compassion and clarity. This particular episode is a follow-up to last week's episode where it was about reclaiming your voice. So I want to share my own personal ENTP story and how I tucked that away. So my type is ENTP. That's extraversion, intuitive, thinking, and perceiving. That means I am the bold visionary, the challenger, and the one who's always asking, but what if we did it differently? And I'll be honest, I didn't always love that about myself. Most of the adults in my life did not appreciate my curious questions and challenging comments when I was truly just looking to understand something that they themselves couldn't explain. So growing up, I learned to be the peacekeeper. I learned to shrink. I quieted those boldest parts of me so I wouldn't rock the boat. I stopped asking those curious questions, and I got really good at being who other people needed me to be. I became less of my true self because it wasn't safe. So I stopped pushing boundaries. I played small because I thought my natural style was too much, too loud, too disruptive, too intense. My extraversion started showing up as introversion. My intuition took a back seat while I let my 5 senses take the wheel. My flexible perceiving preference started showing up as following the rules, super organized and controlled and detailed, sort of those A to B kind of external behaviors. And it's really all so exhausting when you're behaving in ways that aren't natural for your type. But it seemed to be what people wanted from me, so that's what I did. But over time, and especially through doing my own MBTI work, I started to realize that my curiosity and my flexibility is my gift. It's my boldness, it's my vision, it's my ability to challenge old systems and speak the unspoken truths. That's my medicine. Fully embodying who I truly am was the turning point for me, and I wish I could say I did it naturally and easily, but that was not the case. It took some major life-changing events, a lot of stress, incredible heartbreak, and massive courage to step into my power. And when I started to live in alignment with my ENTP nature, something really cracked open. I had more energy, more clarity, more ease, and that's because I wasn't contorting myself anymore to fit in society's box of what I thought I was supposed to be. I stopped judging myself for the ways that I struggled. My natural abilities and gifts didn't always mesh with my external environment. No more judging, and now it's about tuning in and understanding what my soul is trying to tell me. And that's what I mean when I talk about heart coherence. Heart coherence is when your inner truth and your outer expression actually match. It's like your soul finally exhales. And this is the work that I'm called to. My mission is about deprogramming and helping others do the same. This mission manifests externally as leadership or coaching, but ultimately it's all about deprogramming. It's helping people stop performing for others and start becoming them. Becoming bold, becoming true, becoming who they were before the world told them who to be. That's why I do this work, and that's why I built Becoming Bold. That version of you that's been hiding behind what's appropriate or likable or easy to manage isn't you, that's your programming. and your power is buried underneath all of that. When you can become aware of the self or the you behind the mask, and when you can get clear on how your natural style is a true benefit to the world, that's when you step into your power. Personal impact coaching brings a ton of clarity to your natural strengths. It highlights your potential blind spots that could very well get in your way, and it offers suggested remedies so you can move forward with strength and confidence. I would love to be able to help you with this. So if this is sparking some interest to you, reach out and let's chat. So let me leave you with this. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to become, not just successful or productive, but true to you. And your wiring and your innate abilities and quirks and tendencies are not a problem. They're clues. So let your boldness be your magic and stop treating it like a liability. Until next time, please be kind to your mind. That's it for today's episode of Embrace Your Inner Boldness. If this stirred something in you, don't let it fade. Screenshot this episode, tag me at Becoming Bold LLC, and share it with someone else who's ready to rise. And hey, if you haven't already, take a second to subscribe, rate, and review the show. That's how we spread the boldness and keep this movement growing. Whatever came up for you today, feel the fear and do it anyway. You don't need to wait for perfect timing or permission. You are powerful. You are ready. And remember, the only limit to your boldness is the one you set for yourself. Until next time, stay bold, stay curious, and keep becoming you.